and welcome to another edition of Montpelier Connection. I'm Mike Mrowicki, the state representative for the Windham 4 district of Putney, Dummerston, and Westminster. Today, our special guest is Senator Jeanette White. Welcome, Jeanette.
Thanks, Mike.
Jeanette, you've been a senator for how long now?
Oh my goodness, 13 years.
13 years.
Yes, it hardly seems possible.
Well, I still remember you from the select board in Putney.
Yeah.
Did you serve with Peter then?
I did.
Yeah, that was an interesting select board we had.
It was.
Yeah, and both of you continued on.
Yeah.
So we're getting ready for the 2016 session. It's coming fast.
Yes, it is.
And probably by the time this airs, it'll be even closer to it. But a little backtracking to share any highlights, unfinished business from the last session. I know there's a bill that you sent over to the committee I serve on, House Human Services.
Yes, and we're certainly hoping that you'll do something with it this year.
And what bill was that?
That bill happened to be the dental therapist bill.
Yeah.
And I know that it was called dental practitioners, but it seems that every place else in the country where they're looking at this, they're calling them dental therapists, so it makes sense for us to do that also.
Sure. So this is happening other places already?
It is. There are, I don't know how many places have actually introduced a bill. There are only 2 states that currently have such a profession. Yeah. We're hoping that we will, and there are a number of other states that are working on it.
Yeah. And it's working fine? Is Minnesota one of those states?
It is. And for people who don't know, it is one of those states, and Alaska. And for people who don't know what it is the we have a problem with access to dental care in this state.
You bet we do.
Both in terms of how we pay for it and the fact that we have too few dentists. And our dentist population is also aging. So within the next 5, 6, 10 years, we'll have even less dentists. And it's hard to recruit to Vermont. It's a rural state. What this would do is create a profession between the dental hygienist and the dentist. So currently, a dental hygienist can perform, I think it's 26 different procedures. This would add 8 more, and for those 8 more procedures, they would have a full 1.5 years of training, education and training, with many hours, and they would work under the care of a dentist. I mean, they would work not under the direct supervision, but they could have an outpost. Say you had a dentist in Brattleboro, but he didn't want to have an office in Halifax. You could have, the dental therapist could have an office in Halifax, but the dentist would be able to say, you can perform these procedures, or you can't perform these, or whatever. So it's...
And would they have to be associated with a dentist?
Yes, yes. The dentist hires them. The dentist says, you can practice alone, or you can't practice alone, or you can practice on this population, but not this population. The dentist has complete control still.
Yeah.
So
this is similar to what happened about 25 years ago with general practitioners.
And yes.
So now we have nurse practitioners and physician's assistants, and that seems to have worked out pretty well.
It has, and it actually is the same issue we had when we did dental hygienists, because there was a lot of controversy around that.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that it passes this year. It's working in other states. We talked to a lot of people in Minnesota, dentists, therapists, and they're all happy with it. Yeah. So
there's been some pushback, though?
Yeah, the Dental Society has come out very, very opposed to it. And because they feel it's giving a second class of care to people, an inferior class of care, and they won't be able to do all things. Yeah. But just as now the case is, if you go to a dentist and your dentist says, whoa, you need to see a specialist because this is beyond, I'm not going to touch this. He'll pack you up or whatever he does and send you off to the specialist. The same thing would be true for the dental therapist. They're not going to practice beyond their scope of practice, and they're going to say, you have to go see the dentist. Wow. So
I do hope we pass it this year.
I do too.
I've already talked to my chair, and she'd like to get it going too.
And there are more dentists now that have decided that it isn't the sky is going to fall that they thought it was. So.
Well, I think it was one of those pieces that we just ran out of time with last year.
I hope that was the case.
Yep. And I know one of our committee members has been pushing for a similar bill on the House side, Representative French
yeah.
from Randolph. And I know there's a lot of strong support in our committee for it, and I think there'll be support in the House. And the governor's on board with this?
As far as I know.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't spend much time lobbying him last year because it had to get through the House first anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, that's one piece. Are there any things else that's still hanging out there from last year, that bits and pieces we need to pick up on?
No, we're still looking at, you know, Austin closed last year, and we set up there was a bill to deal with the closure of Austin, and it turned instead into a directive to the administration, and they have hopefully done what they were supposed to do, which is to expand their commission on hearing and non-hearing and deaf, and come back to us with a report in January. So we're hoping something positive has happened there. And in the meantime, of course, we know that Winston Prouty is going to be moving up to Austin.
Yeah, I think that's a great use of those spaces.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
And it's too bad that couldn't have happened years ago, so maybe Austin could have had a different outcome there. But
well, there were a lot of issues around Austin, and some of them go back a number of years. Some of them I think were exacerbated by the state, by our policies, some by other state policies. So,
yeah. There's a piece of legislation in the House that we're sending over to the Senate now, and Representative Tristan Tolino from here in Brattleboro has done a lot of good work to get the paid sick leave bill out of the House, which we did, and it's heading over to the Senate. You have any idea of the prospects of that?
Oh, I think it'll pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I think the governor's on board with this one.
I think this is something that we're pretty. I haven't heard a lot of opposition to it. I'm sure it's there, but
yeah, it's actually a bill I think in the long term helps both workers and businesses.
Yeah, I don't have any issues thinking it won't pass.
Yeah. So 2016 is almost here.
Oh man, I know.
No, one of the things we talked about, have talked about several times, is how early the next campaigns are.
Oh, you mean that they're already off and running?
And one of the things, though, looking ahead to the next election, we had the Secretary of State on here last month, Jim Kondo. So,
good.
He was telling us a little bit about the same-day registration that we passed last year, but taking it another step to, I think it's voter registration by mail, and this is one way. Once you get a driver's license, or maybe there's some other documents, that you can automatically be registered.
Yeah, I don't even think it's by mail. I think it's just an automatic registration once you, and I don't know how, I think there are a couple bills now. We haven't taken any testimony on it. My committee is the one that would do that. Yeah. I mean, it could be when you get your driver's license, but what if you don't get your driver's license? People get their driver's license when they're 16 or 17, right? Yeah. Not when they're 18.
That's right.
They can't.
Well, they get their full license, I think, when they're 18. We have the graduated licenses.
Yeah. So I don't know how it would work and how you account for people when they don't get a driver's license. I didn't get my driver's license till I was 21. And so does that mean that I wasn't automatically registered to vote? I don't know how that'll work. We have to look at the details of that.
One of the inspirations for this is we've seen in other states real efforts, I think, to hinder people's ability to vote. So I think Vermont is being very conscious and intentional to increase access to voting. Democracy works when people vote, people participate.
Well, even if we get everybody over the age of 18 in Vermont registered to vote, it's not going to make any difference unless they actually get out to vote.
That's right.
Because currently, we only have about 50% of the people that are registered to vote. Of those who are registered, go out and vote. So we need to spend more time working on getting people out to vote.
Well, I'd like to say right now that our hometown of Putney usually does much better than that, and hopefully we can keep setting a standard for participation of voters.
I think we need to make sure that people get out and vote, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, democracy works when people participate.
Yeah.
So, Jim was also talking about campaign finance, and there's still some confusion around monetary limits. One of the things you've been talking about is making it more transparent to know where money comes from, or this is something else your committee's looked at, hasn't it?
Yeah, we were the committee that worked on campaign finance. Yeah. We do elections. Yeah. I'm not sure what the issues are around transparency or the confusion about the monetary limits. It's pretty clear there. It says this much.
Well, things have changed over the years, and I think that's why it's still not clear whether the limit's $2,000 for this candidate. I know it's clear right now, but because it has changed a few times, not everybody who hasn't been working on it is clear.
Well, I would say that anybody who is either a candidate or works for a candidate or wants to contribute to a candidate would be well served by going to the Secretary of State's website and looking up to see what the limit is.
Given that, though, would it be helpful if more publicity around that was put out there?
I guess it would be. I think the publicity, though, has to be of how you find out what the limits are, because it's so. I mean, what you can give to a PAC is different than what you can give to a party, than what you can give to a statewide candidate and a House candidate and a Senate candidate. So if you tried to list all of that, it would be confusing.
Will there be an easier way for people to look up now online who's getting what from who?
Oh, everybody now has to file online. No more of this sending in pieces of paper that are handwritten and you can't read them. So you file online, and you can go in and you can. So it's a searchable database now. So I could look and see how much Mike Mrowicki got from everybody. I could also look and see how much Coca-Cola gave to all different candidates. Or I could look and see how much Mike Mrowicki over the years, although you won't be able to go back very far because that isn't in yet, but has gotten from Coca-Cola. So
Pepsi too.
Pepsi or Pepsi.
In Putney,
Pepsi, Coca-Cola,
Pepsi,
yeah,
with John
whoever.
Leader living in Putney.
So it will be much easier for people to keep track of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I think it's important for people to know what information is out there, and we certainly don't have the problems they do on a national level, but I think we want to make sure people have access to know who's giving what to who.
And I think that the biggest problem is with the independent expenditure only PACs, because they don't have to disclose who all their donors are, and and we can't put a limit on what people can give to them. That's Supreme Court decisions. So
that's part
we tried in our bill.
You meant United States Supreme Court.
United States Supreme Court.
Citizens United decision.
We tried to limit that. Well, no, that wasn't Citizens United. There have been 3 cases since then that have dealt with limits to independent-only PACs, independent expenditures PACs, and that means they don't give to candidates. They just make their ads. And there have been 3 cases around those, and we can't limit what you can give to them.
Yeah. Well, certainly Bernie Sanders has had a lot to say about this on the national scale, and hopefully more people can be aware of the problems.
There are problems, and the PACs will do what the PACs will do, because they can do it. Yeah. And so.
Yeah. Big picture next year, what are you hoping we get past? What will a successful session look like next May to you?
Well, I'm hoping that we legalize marijuana. I know that's very controversial with a lot of people, but we're trying to, in my opinion, it isn't about the money, and it isn't about the, even just the people that end up in the legal system because of it. We have, as a society, we have said this behavior, which is harmful to you, which is drinking, is just fine. We'll take care of that for you. This behavior over here, smoking marijuana, which is also harmful in a way, is going to be illegal. You're going to enter the legal system. So to me, that's the issue, is that, and I think that there are a number of things. I think we can keep it out of the hands of kids easier if it's legal and regulated, because we can regulate it. Kids are telling me that it's easier to get marijuana than alcohol.
I think it's somewhat disingenuous when people say there'll be greater access, because kids can get it anywhere now.
Kids can get it anywhere now. If you're going to sell it to somebody, it doesn't make any difference who you sell it to. It's illegal. But if it's regulated, you might think twice before you sell it to a kid. Yeah. And there will be no hand-to-hand sales either. You have to have a permit to do it. So we're trying to craft a piece of legislation that will control it, that will regulate it, and keep it out of the hands of kids.
So you've been working on it in the off session. Are you close to having something ready for when we?
Well, we better. All bills Senate bills have to be in the printer on Friday.
This Friday?
This Friday,
okay.
Yes.
I think in the House, it's
you have a little more
week
time.
After we get back, I think.
So there will be a bill that will go to the printer on Friday. I'm not sure who the sponsors will be. It will be myself and some of my other committee members, not all of them probably, and it'll go directly to Judiciary.
Yeah. This is not an issue that's along party lines, though, is it?
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
In fact, two of the promoters in the Senate have, and I don't know why I ended up being in this position, but Democrat, Republican, and progressive.
Yeah.
So
tripartisan.
Yeah. It isn't a partisan issue at all. So that will be, I will consider that success. We have a lot of issues this year around privacy that's in the Judiciary Committee that I serve on. And that's a huge issue in terms of drones, body cameras. If you have body cameras, for example, when is it available to the public? When is it a public record and when isn't it? There's a lot of issues around that. We've been looking at that in the Judiciary Committee this summer.
There's been a lot of call around the country that all police officers should be wearing body cameras. Is that happening in Vermont now?
Are they all using it? No. No, I think I can't remember how many agencies there are that are using them, but not a lot. The cameras themselves aren't terribly expensive. The expense is in storing it and in looking at it, because we have a public records law. So technically everything that's created in the process of doing your agency business is a public record. So does that mean that this film is a public record? So if an officer goes into a home and they're on a domestic and there are children in there and there might be other innocent people in there, how is that a public record, and does it impact their privacy? And so how do you determine that? And then how do you make sure that what is a public record, is released, and what isn't is somehow, it's easy when you have a piece of paper and you can redact, you can take your black magic marker and cross off people's names and stuff. A little bit harder when you've got a visual. So those are all issues that are, and how do you store them? And if you have every single officer in Vermont wearing a body camera and they're on all the time, it's a lot of,
Is that the kind of bill that will be tested in court soon after it gets passed for constitutionality? I mean, where's the ACLU on this one?
On the body cameras?
Has Alan Gilbert weighed in on this yet?
No, because we really haven't taken the testimony on it. We did tasers, you know.
Yeah.
Our committee did tasers. And And we came to what we thought was a good compromise here between the ACLU, the disability community, and law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So hopefully we can do the same if we start dealing with body cameras.
Yep. So
one of the things that's kind of interesting that we're going to look at this year is the whole issue of licensing in this state. And for some stupid reason, we deal with the Office of Professional Regulation. They regulate about 50,000 people in this state. They license them and regulate them.
Professionals or?
Professionals. Yeah. Anywhere, tattoo artists, to nurses, to just tons of different professions. Therapists. But there's also a whole bunch out there that are regulated outside of OPR. And so our opinion is that the state is spending a lot of duplicate money to set up duplicate procedures in agencies to license and not very effectively regulate their professions. So we're looking at moving many of those into the Office of Professional Regulation, which is, I'm going to tell you, really rankle some agencies and some departments. They are going to be in there fighting. Mm-hmm. But I think we stand to gain. Department of DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, came to OPR and wanted to know how to regulate. They have 5 professions that all have to do with water quality. Mm-hmm. And how to license them. And they were looking at just spending $1.2 million to get a new software system to license people. And it turns out that OPR could assume all of those licensees without adding any more staff or any more software at all. So here we were looking at spending $1.5 million and however many people are over there doing the licensing, yep, when we could have it done through OPR. I think we can save, yeah, many dollars here.
Common sense would say that's the way to go.
Right.
Some mental health providers would like to be eligible to bill for Medicaid, yes, but unless they're on the panels, the current panels now, I think they can't. And
well, there's different levels, and these are there's registration, credentialing, and licensing, and this is even a level a little less than either of those. It's called rostered. Okay. That's the word. They're rostered, so they're on a list of legitimate therapists, but they're not eligible to bill because they.
And these, as I understand it, these are folks who are qualified, who are willing to take Medicaid patients, which has been a difficulty sometimes, mm-hmm, finding people who can take Medicaid. What you just talked about, will this encompass some of those providers?
No, because they're currently not licensed, okay, anywhere. So this isn't moving somebody in. This is a new license, yeah, that would be created, or a new credentialing or whatever. And what has to happen is that when you're going to license or credential people, there are standards that are put in place. And unless somebody meets those standards, they can't do it. So what has to happen here is that the profession itself has to come up with those standards and say, this is what has to be met in order to, I mean, we do this every year with some. This year we're looking at licensing of foresters. We licensed applied behavioral therapists last year who are people that work primarily with people with autism. They wanted us to license massage therapists, but do it in a different way. We have a procedure that you go through. So haven't met with people for a while now, but there is a procedure that you have to go through.
Okay.
So.
We've only got a few minutes left. Big picture, small picture, any other things that you're hoping? The budget's going to be another concern this year?
The budget's going to be pretty horrendous, and I'm very curious to see how this, what's been proposed, the current...
The budget adjustment?
No, it's called a current funding or current budget. You look at, if we had this, if we were going to fund everything that we should be funding, at 100%, what would that mean in terms of what we'd need to raise, instead of looking at what we have and then...
Is this in regard to the human service budget especially?
Everything. Well, I think it is primarily human service, but it gets very complicated, I think, because what does 100% funding mean? And we can't even come to those. But Justin Johnson, this Secretary of Administration, has said that they'll present that budget as well. I don't know what they'll use as the definition of 100%, but the budget is going to be really hard. And I think this is going to be a hard session. I think it's going to be hard because we have people already having declared to run for higher office. Then in the Senate, we have at least 2 people who are going to be running for higher office, maybe more. And I think that's going to change the dynamics a little bit, and I'm hoping that it doesn't change them negatively.
Yeah.
But
we need to stay focused on doing the people's business,
right,
and not campaigning.
And there's always the question, well, was that decision made because it's the best decision, or was it made because it's the best decision politically? And that comes up enough anyway.
Yeah.
But when we have, I mean, the president of the Senate is going to be running for governor. We already know that. At least 1 senator is running for lieutenant governor, probably more. And I don't know how that'll shake out. So I'm hoping that it doesn't change the dynamics too much.
Yeah.
We have enough issues.
President of the Senate, you mean the lieutenant governor?
The lieutenant governor, who presides over the Senate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Interesting as we move into this, do you think this is going to be a change going forward, that campaigns will start sooner?
I'm hoping
not. Somebody just declared for state senate in Chittenden County a week or so ago.
Really, I'm hoping not. I think that I'm sorry that people jumped in already on this one, because I think that the public is going to be so sick and tired of campaigning.
Yeah.
In Britain, you know, they have 6 weeks, I think it is.
Candidates even less.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I'm hoping it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it makes what we're doing suspect, I believe.
Yeah.
I think we shouldn't declare until we get out of session.
Yep. And traditionally that had been the benchmark, that people wouldn't declare until the legislative session was out, but different dynamic.
Well, I think the minute the governor announced that he wasn't going to run again, everybody had to get in there right away. And as soon as somebody got in, then other people had to.
Yep.
So.
Well, hopefully we'll stick to our part-time legislating and keep those things separate.
Yeah, and I think that we need to continue with our part-time legislature.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's always fun to do this, and half an hour goes by so fast. We haven't even talked about half of the things that we probably should be talking about.
Well, we'll do this again during the session.
Okay.
And update people on how that goes. So.
Yeah, and people should contact us.
This is the time, right?
Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you?
Well, at my home phone, which is in the telephone book, or at my legislative website, email, which is jwhite at the tag leg.state.vt.us.
Yep. And all that's on the legislative
It's all on the
page.
legislative web page. Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
And thanks to the people at BCTV here once again for doing such great work and helping bring our work to you and bringing Montpelier a little closer home to Windham County here. Until next time, this is Mike Mrowicki.